What is up everyone, Barricade here, and I'm bringing you guys a quick Gears 5 discussion video. I wanted to talk about the escape gameplay that I posted the other day, and I'll also use clips of it here in this video so you can see exactly what I wanted to talk about here. And there was quite a few things that were really interesting and worth mentioning, so I just really wanted to discuss it myself and give my take and opinion on it as well. So the very first thing, I just couldn't wait to talk about these two things here, and that is actually two specific enemies we saw in the gameplay itself, and I just really wanted to talk about it, is the fact that there is sires in Gears 5. I know we saw a little bit of that in the trailer itself, but now we actually see it fully confirmed here in this gameplay, a sire running after the player and actually grabbing them in this weird, type of animation where the player cannot move, they're stuck, and another player has to save them essentially. So it kind of reminds me of something like from Left 4 Dead, where there's enemies that can grab you and essentially incapacitate you to the point where you can't do anything and your teammates have to save you. And I believe from a story standpoint, the reason why we're seeing sires again is simply because of the fact that in Gears 5 they're going back to the New Hope facility. Definitely can easily be brought back in the game here with them simply being revived, similar to what happened in Gears 2 when Marcus and Dom went through that facility. So that right there is freaking awesome. It's so crazy seeing an enemy from Gears 2 in Gears 5. It's just so crazy to see that nowadays. The way it looks, the way, the animation of it, the way it grabs you, everything about it is so freaking awesome. And I really can't wait to play Gears 5 simply just because of that. Next enemy I really wanted to discuss is actually we got to see from a gameplay standpoint what the Warden is like. And we saw that guy is crazy. He moves so fast, and it looked like he pretty much one-shot at the player here. Like he literally just rushed him and hit him once, which almost kind of gives me another feeling of like Left 4 Dead, where there's enemies that can do exactly that, rush you and hit you one hit and you're dead. And that pretty much right there made the Warden one of the worst enemies in the game, worst to fight against, because if he can really do that, just rush you and down you that quick, that could definitely turn the tide of a battle really quickly, especially if you're being attacked by a lot of enemies at once. But that guy looked crazy and really powerful, and not to mention gigantic. So it was really cool seeing the Warden in the game itself finally from a gameplay standpoint. Next things I wanted to talk about here is actually just the classes and characters for the players that you can choose from while playing the game. First one I'll talk about here is Lonnie, and she is a scout and essentially has the ability to use an electro blade, a melee weapon that when she stabs the enemies and melees them, it puts them in this like shocked animation where they can't really move. And while watching the gameplay, it showed that she pretty much just can swing non-stop, and even when she used it against the Warden was completely like useless at that point. He couldn't do anything. He just stood there and got slashed up, and even to the point where he died. So it's a very powerful ability, an ultimate ability as they call it. And once you have that thing active, you can pretty much knife almost anyone to death, because they literally get stuck in an animation where they can't move. So they just simply just sit there and just keep slashing at them until the enemy's dead. So that's pretty dang cool, especially useful when you fight a really powerful enemy like the Warden inside this escape mode. Next other thing I wanted to point out is it did state on her description that she has what is known as a passive ability, which states that 1 in 5 executed enemies drop pilfer pickups. So in other words, simply stating that 1 in 5 enemies that she executes will give ammo essentially. And then the next character that I wanted to talk about is Mac. And Mac essentially has a barrier. His ultimate ability is a barrier that he puts up and pretty much is impenetrable. No matter what hits it from the front part of the barrier, can't get through, and it's pretty much blocks anyone that's around it. It's quite big, and the other players can stand behind it. So if there's a bunch of enemies spraying their assault rifles or whichever, you can stand behind Mac and he'll provide that barrier. And then alongside these classes as well, I wanted to quickly mention that there is skill cards, the ones that can essentially boost the assigned class. So for example, with the first one, Lonnie, she had different options. One was to have shock 3 enemies nearby, or you can choose 60% increased melee damage, or nimble, which was a weird one, 40 extended slide range. So I guess you can slide from a further distance, which is quite interesting. And then for Mac here, essentially he had a longer battery. You can either choose from a longer battery for his barrier, more capacity for his bolt hawk, or be able to take more damage. And at this point, when you first start, you can only put one card, but it's similar to Horde, where as you level up, you can essentially have up to 5 cards. And Rod Ferguson even stated that each card can go as high as level 10. So that's really interesting as well. And the last character we're going to talk about is Keegan, and he's considered the support character, and essentially what his ability is that he can regenerate ammo for other players. So he essentially puts his weird little blue circle around him, and as this is up, other players can stand in this circle and it gives them ammo. So it slowly but surely regenerates their ammo. So that's really interesting. That's going to be very helpful in this game mode when you really need it. And then his passive ability is that when enemies marked by Keegan, when they die, his ultimate ability will charge a bit. So essentially, it's good for everyone to mark while they're killing enemies, because that will help recharge his ability to give ammo back. So if everyone's working really well and on the right page, they can have a lot of ammo like right off the bat. So it's really good to take advantage of that ability when you can. And then the other things I wanted to talk about as well next is actual just general mechanics for the game itself. So the main things here is that the melee, I noticed for all 3 characters, no matter who you were, once you push the melee button, you swing a knife. So that's really interesting. I'm not too sure if this completely eliminates the standard melee from the game, if meaning in the future you won't be able to do a standard punch with the Nasher or the pistol or anything like that, if it's just strictly the knife from now on. Personally, as long as the knife isn't too OP and isn't something that you can run around and knifing people all game like Call of Duty, I won't really hate it that much. I'll admit I kind of will miss the animation of seeing my Nasher punch somebody, when I punch them or whichever. But if it's just the knife thing, it's just how the melee is now, I can get over it, I guess, as long as it's not too overpowered. If there's no crazy damage increase from melees, if they make melees stupid strong, that would really suck. So I really hope that it's just more of an animation thing rather than anything else. Another major thing I noticed as well that's a big change to the standard gameplay for the series is the fact that the health indicator when you're taking damage is quite different. Essentially in the other games, obviously it's just the normal Crimson Omen that gets bigger and more filled out as you take damage. But the thing that's really different with this one is the fact that it just simply fills up a giant gear on the screen, but there's no like skull in the center of it. It's just the gear itself, which personally I feel like is going to be kind of weird to see. I hope maybe they have an option where you can do the classic one with the skull in the middle, because that just feels too different to me. It just feels too weird. I'm so used to just seeing the skull, and it honestly looks kind of strange. The major benefit though with this option, with this new health indicator when you take damage, is the fact that as you're taking damage, it points in the direction you're getting hit from. So if this is how it's going to look even in multiplayer, that can prove to be useful, because there's been times in the past where I'm getting shot and the first thing I say is, where the hell am I getting hit from? I get mad because I can't really tell. It's just like a weird random high damage hit and I don't know where it's coming from. So at least with that, they'll actually point me, oh, he's on behind me to my left or whichever, or he's to my front to my right and I just don't see him or something like that. So it points you in the right direction. So that's one major benefit of it, but I still wish that they would go with the classic look and have the skull in the center, because that's just Gears of War. That's just something that's always been in the series. And then speaking of health indicators, the other thing I noticed is that the enemies themselves, the swarm, have health bars. So you can see, as you're shooting them, it shows their health going down, and on top of it I noticed that there is actually a number for each shot that is hit on the enemy, and it shows how much damage that shot did. So that's actually quite interesting as well, because that's nothing that's never been in the series before. That hasn't ever been in the Gears of War series when it comes to Horde or whichever. And I feel like, honestly, like this mechanic will most likely be just exclusive to Escape. I feel like it's just something to show what the enemies have, how much health they have left. And personally, I don't really mind it in a game mode like this, if it's in Horde and in Escape. And I really hope they still just make it an option that you could turn on or off, because that would really piss off a lot of people, I think, if it's something you can't turn off. Me personally, I don't mind it. I'll go with it. I'll leave it on whenever I play Escape, and if it's in Horde, I'll leave it in Horde as well. I kind of like it because it shows how much health they have left, and it kind of gives you more breathing room to think about what you want to do in certain situations. So personally, I don't feel like it's a bad thing, but I saw a lot of people already complaining about it, so I just kind of wanted to throw that out. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about real quick actually is the Nasher. We didn't really get to see too much gameplay of the Nasher in this video, but one thing I did notice is they did actually show the reticle really briefly. And in the reticle in the game is just a big square. It's not like the other games where it has a rectangle with a more of a distinct sign that we used to see in all the other Gears games. This one is kind of more with the square with the circle in the center. So I'm thinking the spread might be more compressed, so we'll see what exactly that is like, if it means it's more stronger, if it has less range. We won't really know for sure until the game is actually released and we try it in multiplayer. So I really hope the Nasher itself works good in this game, because one of the main reasons why I stopped playing Gears 4 is because the Nasher seems so ridiculously inconsistent, and I really hope they fix that this time around for Gears 5. Last thing I wanted to talk about for today's video is the new enemies known as the Flock. Essentially, it's just a giant, I guess, I don't know how to describe it, a cloud or something. I like to call it, I like imagine it like a cloud, because they just move around like air. These big leeches, they just simply swim around in the air somehow and fly ridiculously fast all together as a collective. And they just simply, once they all hit you at once, you take a ridiculous amount of damage at once. And on top of it, they can do this weird animation where they spin together in a tornado, and that tornado can pull you into them and then you take damage. So that's actually one really interesting thing there. And it's been stated that they are leeches. I'm not just sure if they're considered heart leeches from the Gears of War universe or if there's something completely different. But overall, it still looked freaking cool, and I really can't wait to fight these enemies. I've only really seen other videos where they defeat it and essentially just shoot it as much times as you can until it dies, obviously. But it feels kind of crazy to kill an enemy like that because it's just so many of them. It's kind of like almost like a weird version of the Krill. Almost kind of reminds me of the Krill for some reason. But overall, the gameplay itself was really damn interesting, and I feel like the escape mode would be really, really fun to play with friends. And I'm really excited overall for Gears 5. And I just want to say real quick, guys, sorry if I sound really tired or weird. I'm actually pretty damn tired right now. I'm on a trip with my family to another state, so today was kind of crazy. So if I sound kind of tired or like bummed out or nothing, just know I'm really excited for the game, but I'm just tired as hell right now. But anyways, guys, if you guys like this video, please definitely hit that like button and subscribe, and tell me what you guys think so far about the Gears 5 escape mode gameplay. If you want to see the raw footage of this, I actually uploaded this to my channel before this video, so I'll try to link it in the description, or at least put it as a link at the end of the video. And if you're liking my channel so far, please hit the notification bell so you can be updated for every video I upload. I'm going to be making a lot of coverage for Gears 5 as time goes on, and also definitely a billion videos once Gears 5 comes out, and Gears Pop and Gears Tactics. So definitely stay tuned, guys. Thanks for watching, guys, and take it easy. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to see my most recent Gears of War video, hit that link on the left. If you want to see any of my other content, hit that link on the right. Thanks for watching, guys.